Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Evelyn and I have a guest today. This is Dave from Dave's English. So in this video, we're going to review the content of 5 non-native English speakers and content creators, and we're going to give our honest opinions about the English content that's being presented. So let's get started. Okay, Dave, so let's go ahead and let's watch the first clip.
Alrighty. Don't say, I want to walk in the park. That's not right. Say, I want to take a walk in the park. Or I want to go for a walk into the park. Because if you say, I want to walk in the park, it means, oh, come and then just walk here, just like a robot. Got it? You want to take a walk or go for a walk.
Okay, so Dave, I'm curious to know, is there anything problematic about the English language content that's being presented in this video, according to you?
Well, I mean, he's saying something is a mistake when it's not a mistake. You can say, what was it originally? Don't say I want to walk in the park. You can say that. Now, we can also just say, this is a walk in the park to mean something is easy. But for him to say that if you say I want to walk in the park makes you sound like a robot, like I don't even know where this comes from. Like I can't even fathom where this thought is. Now, everything else he says is correct. You could say those are alternatives, but it's not that the other one is wrong. And what I think here is he's saying that it's wrong, not that it is, you shouldn't say this, you should say this. But he's saying that it's like actually wrong, which is wrong. So that was my takeaway from it.
Yeah, so I would agree with you. So the reason why I've chosen this clip is because there's a lot of content like this in which the creator presents some sort of way of speaking and says that this is wrong, this is a complete mistake, and you need to avoid doing that, and you need to say these alternatives. But like you said, the problem here is it's completely fine to say, I want to walk in the park. And then, the explanation later that the rationale for why saying I want to walk in the park is incorrect is very strange. According to the creator, saying I want to walk in the park means that you're walking like a robot and you're not enjoying the surroundings. Have you heard anything like that before?
No, I mean, if I'm walking like I would assume if I'm going to say that, I'd say I'm walking like a robot in the park. Right.
Okay.
I've never heard that at all. And again, like we said, the point is he's saying this is a mistake instead of just a suggestion. Now, I would say maybe you could use the others would probably be more used. Yeah, like I'm going to take a walk in the park. Like I probably would say that. But if someone says, hey, where are you going? You go, I'm going to walk in the park. I need to clear my head of something. That's totally fine. I probably would say that instead of I'm going to take a walk in the park. So, yeah, I think my big beef with this is that he just says it's a mistake and it's not. So, yeah. And where he comes up with the robot thing, no clue. Just none.
Right. Yeah, and so that's a huge issue because when people are trying to learn English and they see reels like this, they think that this information is correct. This is an established rule when actually it's not. And especially at the end of the reel, this kind of recap of remember what I just said. Don't say this, or say this, and got it. It's all very assertive and very presented in an authoritative way. And I think that's an issue. So we're going to see something similar in the next reel. So let's watch the next clip.
Guys, please stop saying I am eating lunch or I'm eating dinner. The thing is, you eat food, so you can eat your pizza, you can eat burrata, you can eat this pastry, whatever it is. But when we talk about meals, we have them. I am having lunch. Have you already had dinner? So basically you can't say, yeah, I am eating my lunch, but this is really amateur English. If you want to sound more professional, more like a native speaker, say, I am having lunch.
Okay, so Dave, according to you, what could be potentially problematic for English learners if they see a reel like this?
So you can say I'm eating lunch. Okay, this is another one of those. Now, I mean, I'd have to listen to it again. I don't know if she said it was a mistake. She might have. She did say it was amateur English, which,
Mhm.
you know, no, it's I'm, you know, if somebody calls me and they say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'd say, "Hey, I'm eating lunch right now. Eat something."
Yeah.
Okay. I would actually say that. So,
Yeah.
you know, there isn't a difference between, I mean, having lunch is correct. So that's the thing with a lot of these is that
Yeah.
the alternative they give is a correct alternative. Now, I think maybe if we think of, let's say, French speakers,
Mhm.
okay, and with French, it can be they take a lunch, whereas taking a lunch would be like to take away in English, right?
Yeah.
So that might help somebody, but for her to say that I'm eating lunch or I'm eating
Yeah.
dinner, eating breakfast is incorrect,
Right.
is incorrect. And this whole idea, and this is a problem I specifically have with this channel,
Mhm.
this because she talks about being confident. She talks about speaking in English with confidence and
Yeah.
that you can say what you want. But when she says, "Oh, this is amateur English, but this is the way
Yeah.
people say it," it's demeaning,
Mhm.
really. And I think that that's one thing that I get out of this, that it's absolutely demeaning to say, "Hey,
Mhm.
I speak proper professional English. Don't speak
Mhm.
this, amateur English." Very demeaning. And she prides herself on not being demeaning, but this video
Mhm.
definitely is.
Yeah, so I showed you this reel because yeah, it's the same problem. These creators presenting information in a very authoritative way, and you did pick up on the fact that she doesn't actually say it's wrong. So it's not like the first reel where this is the creator saying I am eating lunch is flat out wrong, but she does say it's amateur English, and if you want to sound like a professional English speaker or a native English speaker, you should say I'm having lunch. So the issue I have is these categories that creators come up with, they just don't make sense. So what does it mean to be a professional slash native English speaker? So when we think about professional English, we think more about in formal settings, sounding academic or professional. Native English, if we think about it being a native speaker, we're probably less professional. We're more informal. So these categories are very confusing. But yeah, she's saying that you should say this in order to sound like you're mastering the English language. And she is using words that are very demeaning, amateur English.
Right. And I think on top of that, but I think this whole idea of sounding, more formal, maybe compared to whatever, it depends on the setting. I mean, I don't think that you need to be formal when you're sitting in your own kitchen eating lunch, right? And I think that there's this creation of this idea of being formal, you know, equating to intellect and stuff like that. Now, and I think this goes a lot into English learning, that people want to sound professional, whatever that means, and proper and formal. When we have spoken English, it's totally different. And I talked about and written English as well. I've talked about this as well, and I'm sure you've had it because you go to a well-respected university, I assume. Okay, like I said, looking at the water bottle that I saw, I assume that that was it. So did I. And the way that we write, so you've probably done presentations, you've probably done articles or something, you've submitted to conferences and whatnot. The way that we write those things, which could maybe be seen as professional or formal, is not even nearly the way that I would speak. Like, I mean, it's night and day. And I even took something that I wrote when I was doing my master's degree and say, listen to this. Do I sound like that I would actually say that? No, but I actually did write this. So I think that this is a problem too, try and make people that there's some formal way to speak, that there's some correct or right way to speak. When like me, and that's why I do my videos the way I do. I don't like, I just talk off the cuff. I'm just like, hey, whatever. So that people know, hey, you can accomplish things and do well, but you don't have to sound like a robot, going back to that last guy's video.
Yeah, and just this whole instilling fear in people, I think is awful. It's already stressful to learn a new language, and so I completely disagree with the approach of these two reels or these two creators. So let's go ahead and let's watch the third reel.
What about this one? You try? Okay, now me. American will be bus. British, boss. Then bus. Easy.
Okay. Dave, what do you have to say about this type of video that's focused exclusively on pronunciation? So American, British, and then unspecified, I guess.
Right. Well, I do. Okay, so there's one thing, you might have gotten something different out of this, but there was one thing that I noticed was with the American version. So he uses the IPA as far as the pronunciation. And the way he pronounces the American version of boss is not the way in which the IPA is written. So that two little colons is like you expand like far bird, right? But he says like boss. He does it like really short. So the IPA that he has there is not the way which he says it. So how it's written there is correct. I would say boss. So you hear the and it's not a diphthong, but it's just an exaggeration of that boss sound. So this is a thing that I noticed the most. Whether British people say it that way or not, I don't know. This is why I never critique like British accents, because I'm like, I don't know. And I only can do the critique Canadian accents just because I live there and I want to be Canadian. But yeah, like with boss, I mean the IPA he has in there is correct, but the way in which he says it is different than what he has. So that was the thing that I noticed the most.
So I've shared this reel because to me it's interesting when someone presents this type of content that's focused just on pronunciation and there are mistakes. And I actually looked at the comments on this reel, and people have complained and they've said this isn't right. And this creator kind of said, oh well, post your own video and correct it. So I guess that's kind of what we're doing now. So the difference between boss and bus, I think Canadians and Americans say it the same way. And this creator is saying something else. And at the end of the reel, he says it's easy or it's simple. It's just, there's a lot of content like this. A lot of people want to offer the American accent, the British accent. And I guess I just wanted your opinion, or wanted to know what you thought about these creators who are saying this is how Americans say this word.
Well, getting to what you said about this at the end where he says, oh, this is easy. I'm looking at a comment right now saying, no, it's not easy at all. This is one of the things I can't pronounce. They never understand me. This is the problem. This is, again, creating that idea that if you don't speak perfect. Now, a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, and I think Canada is like this as well. Canadian speakers are, as well as Americans, is that we have a very rich immigrant society. Yeah. So we are not, at least in the United States, I don't think we are as strong on the accent. Is that like if somebody comes to us and speaks with an accent, we can understand from the context of what's being said, what somebody's saying. If somebody says, oh, that's not bed, instead of that's not bad, we know that they're saying bad, but they're maybe not pronouncing it that way. But we know that it's not like, oh, if you didn't say it bad, if you didn't say it exactly that way, the person doesn't know what you're going to say. So therefore, you're speaking incorrectly. And I think that's it. By saying this is simple, what's simple to one person is not simple to another person. Right. And I think that's the case. As far as, and I've kind of done this as well. I've done some videos recently about people saying you can have an American accent and they themselves don't have one, which, I mean, I don't want to sound bad in that case, but it's kind of like, I can't teach somebody how to be an airline pilot if my only experience is playing on a flight simulator on my computer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the same knowledge, but it's not transferable. I don't have that knowledge. I also think, and I get a lot of criticism for this, and I'll take it, is that like for your ears listening to people and for my ears, our brains are trained to know if somebody is a native speaker or not, and if they don't have an accent. But this whole idea about teaching an American or a British or a Canadian accent, it then creates that idea of, back to what we were talking about in the other videos. If you want to succeed, you have to speak like an American, or you have to speak like a British person, or you have to speak like a Canadian, or you will not be able to succeed. But hey, it's easy.
Right. Yeah, and these videos are so quick. The information's presented so quickly, and then it's over, and then you're just left thinking, okay, if I don't get this, there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with my learning, or I'm just unable to process this information. Okay, so let's go on to, what is it? Number 4.
Excuse me, could you bring me a fork, a knife, and a spoon? Flatware? Flatware, yes. Here you are. Thank you. And for the Japanese food, I need those, chopsticks? Chopsticks, please. Here you go. Amazing.
So, yeah, Dave, did you have anything that you thought might be problematic for someone maybe thinking about moving to the United States and learning English?
Well, I mean, flatware, I've never heard it called. I mean, I have heard it called flatware before.
Yeah.
You know what? That sounds like flatware seems more, we would just say silverware. Okay.
Right.
And even if it is plastic, right? We could say that. We can say plastic silverware, right? But like flatware to me, it does seem like something that might be printed. Like, let's say you walk into a Loblaws or something and you're going to buy some flatware. It looks like it might be printed on there, but it's just, again, not a word that we use. I will admit one thing. I think that these videos can have a little bit of humor to them. I do like that a little bit, but I do think that how she says it, she like, do you have, like at the beginning of the video, she's like, do you have the separate things?
Yeah.
You can say that. You wouldn't say, oh, do you have flatware? In fact, as a matter of fact, I might actually say, do you have like a fork, a knife, and a spoon? Right? I might actually say that. So I think to say that that's incorrect, to actually mention each one.
Yeah.
Because actually, I don't know if somebody said, do you have flatware?
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if flatware is actually silverware. So I mean, it's come to the point now that like these things, I'm just like, wait, or does that mean like pot, like a pan, like a pan to cook something? Is that flatware?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, we just wouldn't say this. And the fact that now I'm confusing myself just shows how rare it is.
Yeah, so this is actually super interesting because the reason why I've shared this reel is because I had the exact same reaction that you literally just had on camera, which is this confusion. And then you start to doubt yourself and you start thinking, wait, what word do we actually use? So I have an entire YouTube video on this creator who has 4 million followers on Instagram, and I think maybe 700,000 follower or subscribers on YouTube, and the content's it's a lot. All of the content is similar to this, so it's kind of like survival English. You're in a situation and you need to convey what you're trying to say because you need something in order to do something. So you're at a restaurant and you need to eat your food, so you need to ask for whatever those things are called. But then a word is taught that's not commonly used, and then what I've noticed and what's really interesting is that some creators may or may not know that this is a reaction that people have, and I'm not making any direct claims, but there are creators who make you question if these are intentional mistakes or if this is done for a certain reason, because a lot of these reels get millions of views. And what happens is native English speakers enter the comments and they give their input. So it's interesting. If you just Google define flatware, it will literally say North American eating utensils such as knives, forks, and spoons, which makes me think that maybe someone, a non-native English speaker teacher, may do a search like that and then use that word. But the problem is they don't actually know that that is not a common word, or that's not what we usually call those things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so Dave, I wanted your opinion because I think in Canada we mostly say utensils or cutlery at a restaurant.
I was gonna say cutlery as well. Right. Like if we're talking about them, I would say silverware, or if it's like, even if it's not like technically that, like if you go to Walmart and you buy, the plastic stuff, it might be called plasticware, but then we can say like plastic silverware. But yeah, cutlery, we would say, utensils. I mean, we can't say that. It's not like it's unknown. If you ask for that, it wouldn't be unknown. I would just say that it's rare, but I think in most situations, I would even maybe say that if you need the whole package, you might then say, can I have some cutlery? Mm-hmm. You can say them individually, but I would say as the whole package, it would be cutlery or probably still more commonly silverware.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And so do you think if they were in a restaurant in the States and they asked for flatware without any sort of gesturing, would a server know what that meant? Probably given the context.
Probably given the context and deduction from what other possibilities there are. Yeah. Probably because I'm like, okay, they're probably not asking for a glass. They're not asking for ketchup. And I know they don't want a pan from the kitchen. So I can probably deduce from what is available that I could figure it out. But let's say you don't have context. Let's just say a person's out in the middle of a field and then you ask them, do you have any, now you said cutlery. Do you have any flatware? Yeah. At that point, I might think that this is some sort of tool to maybe dig something or build something. Like when you take out the context of the restaurant, then and that's the thing with a lot of words. I mean, I don't need to. So I have books here, which is funny. I got, speaking of Canada, I just have a ton of books on Canadian politics. So, and it's like, I can say, what is this? And you can say it's a book. You don't need any context regarding what this is. I can be anywhere with this and you can know it's a book. And so I think it's important to know what a word is. Yes, context helps, and context helps a lot. But if you can know the word outside of context, that means probably it's going to be a more commonly used word.
Right. Yeah. So this kind of information, you can do Google searching, but I think this is a case where being a native English speaker or living in North America or just having maybe access to people who are native English speakers really helps, because you can Google one thing and technically it says right here on Google, flatware is a North American term meaning eating utensils such as knives, forks, and spoons, but it is not a common word that we use. So potentially problematic for learners.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's watch the fifth and final reel.
Delulu, have false beliefs. Giyat, goddamn. Bussin', something amazing. Ate and left no crumbs. Do a remarkably good job at something.
Okay, so this creator is teaching slang terms and their meanings. Dave, what do you make of this type of content?
I mean, you might know what I'm already going to say.
Okay.
Which is that I had to look up almost every single one. Well, all of these. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm just not going to lie. I like Delulu. Okay. I mean, and this is one of the biggest problems I have is, so we've really gone from one end to the other, haven't we? We've gone to professional formal English to TikTok English. And I do notice this. It does seem like, and there is slang, okay. There are idioms, and that's fine. But it does seem like this is. I'm older, okay, and this seems very. If you said this to somebody in my generation, Gen X, we would have zero clue. Like I said, I didn't even know what this was. But then we have kind of our slang that we might use that other people might not. I don't really know. But again, I think it matters with the people that you're with. You can kind of find a common slang or whatever. So like when I went to McGill, yes, I was an American, and like me and my other American friend would hang out with our Canadian friends. And there was just kind of like a common slang we could all understand amongst each other. Like if somebody said something that might be more Canadian than American and vice versa, we could kind of get what the idea was. But if anybody had said Delulu, I would have been like, I don't know what that means. And so I think we've come to this point where, and it's funny, just like how the pendulum has swung in this video from formal English to Delulu. I hope I'm saying it right. I don't know. That we're coming to this point that I call it Instagram English. It was such as like Lingua Marina and English with Lucy did a video, they created a program which they were selling. It was just how to say, just vocabulary building. And they were like Netflix and chill. And I'm like, this is something that just seems like you'd put in an Instagram post, not something that you would say at a conference or something. And it's like, what is the utility? And this is my issue. Like with this, outside of, let's say, TikTok, what is the utility of this slang? Because it's only going to really target a very specific and small group of people. So, I think there's slang that's common, but then I think there's slang that's just so within one part or maybe extremely generational that it's wrong. So yeah, I didn't know any of this stuff. I guess I learned what Delulu is today.
Yeah. So, I learned new things as well because I didn't know any of these slang words or expressions either. So yeah, that's the reason why I've shared this reel. And that's interesting. Something called TikTok English. I'm sure they'll write academic papers on this topic and just, it is a big thing thinking about how this type of content is influencing English learning. So I think I've looked up some of these words and it seems like they're very, very new. It seems like some of them are like 2019, 2022, and they can be found.
Well, I looked up Delulu and the article that I found was like literally from September of 2023.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, so like even somebody who is 22 years old, this might be out of date for them, right?
Yeah.
So, so, but again, the audacity to say this is American slang,
right,
is what I think is very rich.
Okay.
And for somebody to say, oh, this is what Americans say, no, it isn't. And there are a lot of other things that we can say. And it's just like if somebody came up to me and said this, I guess I would think they're Delulu because I wouldn't know what they were saying. So
so some of these expressions you can only find definitions in highly reputable websites like Urban Dictionary, where someone writes a definition of a word that they made up completely on their own. So I think the reaction that a lot of people have is the one that you had, which is like you watch this and you're like, oh, I don't know these words. I guess it's it's for these younger generations or something. But then the people who don't know better, they think that these are commonly used, and the truth is that they're not. So honestly, this type of content, people are spending their time and energy learning things that will not be used and people will not understand.
Well, and especially if they don't know English. Like I did not understand that delulu would mean delusional.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's what I found out. And like, okay, now I can see it, but I couldn't get it out of context of what she was saying because she didn't provide any. She was just like, this is what these are.
Right.
On the other hand, and this is something I tell my students, I'm like, you are really at what I would consider the C2 level if you're able to create stuff out of words. So there is a movie called Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy, and it was made back in the early 90s. And there's one quote that I always use, and I won't say the swear word, I'll be nice, but it like they have a problem and they're trying to hurry up and fix it and try to get everything back to normal. Like somebody spilled the beans regarding something and he's like, oh, can we fix this? And he says, can we put the beep back in the horse? And it's like if you're an English speaker, you can just kind of get, even though you might have never heard that before, you can get the context of what this idea is. Whereas like with this, I don't have any context of where this might have come from. Now I've always said to be like a strong English speaker, and there is a person that I did a video of, and his name is Roman, and he's a Russian speaker from he's never visited an English speaking country that I know of ever. But it's the way in which he uses the language that is extremely natural, that it isn't about pronunciation. He has a Russian accent and it's just being able to use like certain, he speaks in a certain way that if I'm sitting with him, talking to him, I'd understand it. He uses a lot of slang, but the thing is, he uses the slang in the exact, moment in speaking where I would maybe use that same word. Okay. And I think that is that kind of, I mean, now I would say he's a C2 speaker just because of this awesome ability. But again, he's and I have him as an example of, he has an accent. Okay. He has some Russian pronunciation with some words, very little, but the way in which he handles himself, is amazing. But yeah, this is just, again, going back, I guess, to that last video you had, just listening words, and here they are, no context. Yeah. And that's where we're coming down to 30-second clips. But even like with your clips, like you have the shorts and all that, you have them packed with information. It's just not like this. You got them packed with information. And on top of it, you kind of make people think a little bit. You'll give them a little bit of an example. It's like, here's a little bit of a hint of what the word is. You make them think, and then you give them. I find those very creative.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of reels like that, and I try. So I try to get people to not just passively take information in. So do a little bit of work, do a little bit of thinking. Okay, Dave, thank you so much for collaborating with me. I'm glad that we were able to do this and apply our critical thinking skills and offer an assessment of these non-native English speakers and content creators. Before I wrap things up here, you guys please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and make sure you turn on alerts so you can get notifications about my new content. And make sure you check out Dave's channel, Dave's English. I'm going to put all the links and all the information below. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see everyone next time.